I think we're on clock. I'm going to get started. Hi, guys. My name is Mo Tarimella. I'm the Managing Director at Blackwater Tech, and welcome to this construction workshop. I'm excited to share a few of the findings that we've been able to look at over the past few projects that we've been working on. So far, we've been delivering about 100 digital transformation projects for our clients, mainly within the construction or mergers and acquisition scenarios. The reason why we put together this workshop is to present some of our findings, especially where there's impact on profitability and also project variations. And some of our clients have communicated to us saying these were some of the main problems they've been looking at, and they were asking for many different models that could help prevent, and how do we design or how do we structure technology to achieve these goals. And I kind of thought, I'm going to put it out there. This is our findings so far. And one of the things that came back from some of our webinars previously, people were able to give us some feedback that helped us get better at what we do. And also, while sharing, this is like a knowledge sharing kind of a scenario where we're able to collaboratively build the knowledge base across the industry. Okay. On that note, I'm going to get started. So the presentation is structured around how technology can be used to reduce construction margin or profitability margin. There are two main factors that we've been able to see that impact the growth of in construction industry mainly. Not just that, pretty much all the project management scenarios. One is, there is a cash flow. Time and again, there's payment delays. They're causing quite a bit of impact on how fast the business can grow. That is one factor. The second factor we've been looking at is how variations are handled or approvals are handled. So with these two in mind, I'm going to present some of the different methods and models that are available out there. Okay, but for the purpose of this session, I'm going to split or organize the whole conversation in a model that is compatible, or that comes directly from the construction industry. Okay, so we'll be looking at cost value reconciliation as being one of the factor, and then variations in labor and plant availability related items, and also subcontractor, and finally tracking payment signals. Or it's not just tracking of payment signals, it's also about how to make this information continuously visible throughout the project. Okay, I'm going to move into the next slide really quick. At any point, guys, if you have any questions, please drop it into chat, and we can. I will take them as soon as I can. Yeah. Great. First problem I want to talk about is the construction margin leakage being a control problem. It's not a reporting problem. Most of the time we see, okay, the project has begun, and once the project has begun, everybody's going full throttle, and time and again we realize there is a leakage, or some of the tasks that have been scheduled for the project are slipping, and that happens sometimes later than it's helpful. The sooner you can see it, you can do something about the problem. But if there's a delay between when the problem happens and when it's captured, that usually makes that delay make an impact on how much time is spent on the project. In the construction scenario, the cost value reconciliation factor, or tracking that cost value reconciliation, helps us control or identify this event as soon as it happens. In terms of designing systems or organizing your information, here's a proposed baseline that we've been working against. Right. So the target here is, we're saying there's a site to office handoff. So there's a disconnect between the location where the project is happening and the project managers. And that gap, bridging that gap, will help us create or trigger the required response that needs to happen for this event. Okay, what I mean by that. So we have a baseline, by setting a baseline at this level, right? So what is the package cost, earning, and impact on, so if there's a delay, how are we gonna recover from that scenario? Right. So considering or cataloging all of the previous scenarios wherever such variations have happened in your cost value reconciliation. By tracking all of those, you're able to then say historical data, use the historical data to then present or trigger future responses. What basically happens is, having this historical data, you're able to start off by saying, okay, these are the signs or these are the symptoms that we're going to be tracking, and this is going to be our immediate response. Even if the problem doesn't really act or activate, you can forecast your possibility of an event happening. So I think that is one of the advantages of using technology within this space. So tracking your historical data whenever there's issues popping up, what are the symptoms, and that way you can proactively tackle the problem. So setting the baseline, or defining what kind of metrics you want to see are going to be symptoms, and then being able to capture that information within a system. So again, categorizing by labor, plant, material, or site progress. Then there is approvals. Is it an approval-based impact? And then there's also change in variations. And finally, I'm talking about the bill. When the work is applied, is the billing happening on, or is there a gap between when you've raised your payment application and the payment is happening? Okay, so these are some of the baseline. If we are able to view these baseline metrics, then as soon as there are changes in these baseline, you're going to be able to respond. So this is the rough overview. I'm going to go into some of the methods that we been able to apply in our design previously. Okay. So the method one, we're talking about one construction baseline as even before the start of the project, right in the planning stage. Okay. So here, what you're saying is, there's estimations. Within estimations, you're setting a baseline that there's so much of leeway between what you are able to set as an estimate and what is going to be actually, what is the actual record of that time consumption, and also tracking the estimated. So this, if you're able to put, let's say, 10% or 20%, and there's a trigger when that baseline is shifting, then that's another. So the way systems can help you within this space is by creating automated notifications. Most of the systems that we currently have, so we work primarily with Microsoft Dynamics. We built a product, it's called Construction BT, and it layers on top of Microsoft Office 365, pretty much the application infrastructure, and it allows you to produce all of these automated components quite seamlessly and quite low cost and low effort intensive methods. Okay, so setting triggers when there's changes within the estimation, setting triggers when there's changes within the scope, and then also resource planning. So whenever there's unexpected planned leaves, planned or unplanned leaves, these are definitely going to have some kind of an impact in terms of when there are the project is going to shift. So in some cases, especially construction scenarios, we see people need to make people wait as soon as there's unplanned events happening within the scenario. Most of these can be automated as notifications. Most of these can be tracked using dashboards. And organizing information in a right format is what's going to enable you to build these notifications or any dashboards simpler. Okay. The final thing on this is the payment rules. So we need, similar to how we have rules in terms of how we are going to handle different types of unplanned events, like say somebody takes a leave, this is how we are going to respond to that scenario based to approve or not approve the leave during the project. Same way, we need to have rules around payments. So I'm going to cover some of that detail in further slides, but just to give you an overview now, it's like saying, okay, if it is a 1 week delay, we're saying it is something that's manageable. But if it is 2 weeks delay, it's moving into the realm of being a risk. And then finally, when it's on a third stage, when it goes beyond the 2 weeks, then it's going to actually cause cash flow problem. Okay, so by categorizing and how we respond to each category, if we have rules around that, again, these rules can be built into the system so that at that point you can have the right number of people notified, right number of people engaged, even before the problem happens. Okay. One of the common things we've seen within the construction industry is there is heavy dependency on spreadsheets or independent systems, because when they're not connected, being able to set up these triggers becomes a bigger task that it needs to be. And this day and age, we live in the age of AI. There was an interesting thing that I saw the other day. Elon Musk was talking about um, the industries that are able to apply AI to the fullest potential. They are the ones who are going to be surviving the next wave. And I kind of believe that, because right now there's a whole lot of tracking, there's a whole lot of visibility that you can generate. And depending on how you organize information is what's impacting how effective or how much you can use systems like, the intelligent dashboards, analytics, or even AI. Okay, cool. I'm going to move into the next slide now. This is, again, so the previous method we looked at was setting baseline around estimate scope and resource plan payment rules. And the second method I want to talk about is setting a baseline around work. Okay. So in this case, we're tracking work performance. We're tracking the site performance, and then what is the entry exit. So whenever there's a variation in number of people being able to actually be present on the site, and also there's quality reviews, and then client sign-offs, and if there's a signal within the CVR which is impacting or recommending there's an issue between approval of the payment application and the submission of the payment application. Okay, so the recommendation here, good control, it's not just perfect capture, it is happening early enough. So you're recording the data, but you're also recording it early enough so that you're able to respond to the change. Okay, again, now this is again, the focus here is how we organize the data. So with the previous method, the baseline we are suggesting is around our estimations, it's around our plans, and again, around our payment rules. The second method we're looking at is around how work is being captured, how operations are being captured, and then approvals are being captured around client sign-off and CVR. Okay. I'm going to move quickly into the third one, which is, again, this is aging and escalation. So you can set your baseline on, there's various tasks at play. There's various pieces of operation at play. It could be internal, it could be external. Now, depending on when there is or how much there is a delay between each step, or sometimes according to the plan, we kind of like set a baseline or everything needs to happen one after another. There are certain tasks that go in parallel, some go one after another. But if there's a small delay in one of the tasks ahead, there's a knock-on impact on the other ones. So the approval aging and escalation scenario is where we are tracking everything based on age. Okay. Whenever there's a leak or there's a delay in approvals, even though the job is done, that could silently push some of the profitability metrics. Okay. Now this is a categorization that I've been talking about previously. So here, let's say just as an example, by setting rules similar to this, we say 0 to 2 days. We're saying it is normal, owner action is approve or query, and then technology response is queue only, meaning to say, if it is, we will add it to a queue of things that need to be done. There's a small delay here, 1 to 2 days. And if 3 to 5 days, you need then the project manager to be alerted, and you need to be able to chase the approver. Okay. Finally, 6+ days, we can call it as a risk. This needs escalation. This needs more eyeballs on the event. Okay. So we looked at 3 methods just now. One is, setting your baseline around estimations, your resource planning. So all the planned items, we're setting a baseline. This is one way to do this. The second way to do it is setting the baseline around the work in flight or the execution side. The third method we looked at is setting a baseline around around aging of your tasks or aging around your approvals and the events or people's response. Now, depending on which method you would like to choose, there is a way information needs to be organized. And depending on, in other words, in software industry terms, this is something called like solution architecture or data architecture. So with the way we look at systems is in three layers. One is the business process layer. This is where people are on the screen. They're clicking on a bunch of buttons or screens. They're navigating through the screens to be able to achieve a certain result. So that is the business process layer. Underneath that, you have your application layer. Application layer comprises of all the components that come together and how those components interact with each other. And then the third layer is the data layer. Depending on how the data is organized, just if simplistically looking at a database, as you know, it is a connection or a large volume of spreadsheets connected together. Right? So from that point of view, depending on which method you choose to set a baseline, there is a need to evaluate what are the pros and cons or how much control. So if you have a strong team internally that is able to handle approvals and escalations, the method 3 is going to be the most viable option. Whereas if you have a strong finance team, this is where this model is going to be the one that's going to be most effective. Whereas if you have a low number of resource in project management team and high number of people in finance team, the first one. And again, if you have on-site teams that are stronger or larger in number, lots of people available there, then the method 2. Okay, so this is one of the models. So whenever we speak to our clients, whenever there are these type of scenarios that we come across, that is how we tend to develop the design. Okay, cool. I'm going to move quickly into the next slide. This is kind of talking about connecting variations to commercial impact, right? So in the previous 3 methods, we were talking about how how we structure around the resource or the planning or the estimates, and then we also looked at how the approvals and aging can be set as a baseline. But there's another method here we're going to be talking about, which is to do with setting the baseline around the origin of variation. So one of the main problems in construction projects that we've seen is there is a plan and there's a architectural design, and we're going in to do the work execution, and we tend to realize that when the actual build is happening, there are some things that don't work together. So you need to send it back to get input from the architect or somebody who's going to be able to comment on, say, compliance. It could be from a legal point of view, or it could be health and safety point of view. So whenever these kind of events happen, the stakeholder who needs to share input on those variations or approve those variations, there may be a delay. Now, usually, again, that delay means the work cannot progress. You have team members who go on site to execute a piece of work, and they're not able, they have to wait. And depending on how much of a wait time there is, there could be an impact. Most of the scenarios I've seen, variations such as these tend to have a significant impact in terms of losing profitability on a project. This baseline method that we're talking about is connecting all of these variations directly to your margin, your profitability margin. So there is if you establish a target profitability on any project and then set a baseline, whenever there's a variation, if it is being tracked to establish how much of margin is left or how much of the margin is being consumed, can any of this be recovered at another stage? Can we accelerate some of these future steps because of this delay here? or we made a variation, but the variation can bring us benefits as well in some scenarios. So is there a possibility of that? So that type of an analysis is going to be possible by using the baseline to connect your variation requests and impact on margin. Okay. How this can be achieved. Here we're talking about setting up a dashboard-based view. So currently, most of the businesses are using dashboards as a retrospective scenario where you are seeing what has happened in the past. So you look at a report just to say, we closed out this project. This is how it's been done. These are the lessons learned. This is what we're going to do next. So most of the reporting is across the industry, not just construction industry, even finance, even technology industries. Reports and dashboards are being used to see what is the result or what is the end output, or to report to compliance bodies, right? Whereas if technology is applied to the fullest potential, the view is we're able to see, we are able to use this as a cockpit. So when you're flying a plane, the cockpit literally gives you the real-time reading of what is the pressure in the cabin, what is the wind, or what is the velocity, or what are the changes in temperature outside, or even the body of the airplane. So those type of, they're quite, you are using it in real time. You're responding to it in a real time. And this basically helps you increase or decrease your response to whatever's coming ahead of you. Okay. So weekly exception dashboard, usually this is how we structure it, looking at your margin, looking at your productivity variance, and also approvals, the aging of approvals. There are variations that are being taken in which are unpriced. There's also payment blockers and also pending actions. Okay, so using a margin dashboard, again, a real-time dashboard, I think is effective for exception handling. Okay, now turning payment blockers into a managed workflow, right? So time and again, whenever we have payments that are getting blocked, or there are payment applications that are not getting approved, it is not an event that we are actively managing or we have a process for. So there's a delay here. It is an unexpected delay, and I think some would say that those are events we can't really plan. Customer committed to making a payment on this day, but that hasn't happened. So it is a surprise. So you cannot really categorize it into a managed. But tracking, I think you cannot 100% remove the lack of control on that, but we can increase control from that being a surprise. Okay, how can we achieve that? By tracking delivered work, by tracking the evidence around the delivered work, and also all the conversation around it. You're going to be able to say to the owner of the action, meaning to say you submit a payment application and the business, whatever question they have, you're going to be able to present all of that information. So there's one way, one of our clients that did this really well. So using a portal, they were able to track all the conversations between the customer team members and their internal team members in one single pane. And whenever there was a customer was raising a question, we were able to enable a chatbot that was able to say, hey, have you looked at this response? We've talked about this a few weeks ago. And that reduced significantly a volume of questions that the customer was going to raise. So the new issues, so all the questions, once they're covered, if the customer already has the access to the answer readily within their login in their portal view, then the reasons for them not to take this forward significantly comes down. This is an overview of the technology pattern. So what we are saying here, we pick one of our baselines that we've been talking about so far, and we have project, site team, cost, variation, and payment. Connecting all of these is the high level view. Okay. And when you're triggering this design, the key here is going to be able to visualize or get the clarity that you need, mainly on the control loop. So whenever there is approvals requiring, or whenever there are variations that are happening, if you're able to look at the design, so whoever you choose to design this system for you, if you're able to get clarity and clear visibility of how well you can control that control loop, I think that is going to be the main one. And it can be done across these 5 different aspects. Once system is produced in this pattern, then time and again, we need to have reviews in place. Okay. So first, you need to track all your signals, and these trick signals that you're looking at against all your variations, all your delays and approvals or payment blockers. You need to be able to view that on a regular basis. You need to be able to review that. Our recommendation is a weekly rhythm. This is what we've seen successfully play out with some of our clients. Okay. Then the review, and then the action, and there's also a close. So when these have been addressed, how are you going to close it so that you can restart again on the new loop? Okay. Recommendation again, instead of replacing every process, day one, map what is the main, if you have a list of issues that are making an impact on variations or control and approvals, I would suggest picking one, use that, and then map out what is an ideal scenario going to look like, and then start using that, start improving the system, or start improving the capture of information that help you create alerts and views. Okay. And then you run and review how this loop has been working, and then are there methods to make it better? Okay, so you deal each scenario by scenario basis, identify what information, what new fields you want to have, review the next version, and then see methods of scaling. End goal, we want to make any risk to margin visible as soon as possible so that we have the time to act on it. We want to be proactive rather than reactive. So as soon as you have pretty much everything that's in flight in front of you in a proactive, or if you have a pipeline in front of you that you know what to do, the control or even the pressure from day-to-day work kind of comes down. And cash flow, whenever the cash is going to be in or out, or are there any alternative arrangements that you can make, you'll have the luxury of time to work with it. I think stress is one of the biggest things that hits companies or business growth in scenarios where it's hard to control. So once you take away the stress from the day-to-day working, I think we'll be able to get the full potential from the team we're working with. And it's also good for the health and longevity for everybody, the quality of life point of view. Yeah. Some questions to take back. It's like, I think, pretty much when you are looking at future projects, where do we first know the margin is drifting, where approvals are aging without ownership, and which of the deliver works are frequently seeing any issues with payments, and then setting that loop, establishing the model, setting up the loop, and the weekly meeting to track these changes and the outcomes. I think that's going to be the key. Thank you for joining us, guys. I know this has been a quick run through of everything. And we kind of try to put everything in the most simplest way possible to cover in a half hour kind of time. But if you have any further questions, please get in touch with us. And if you have any thoughts, if you feel like anything was wrong, any feedback, any input that can help me make it better, we really welcome it. The quickest way to get in touch with us is our email address. I'm going to quickly take a look at the chat if there are any questions, but otherwise, I think we've come to the closing time. But yeah. On that note, I don't see any questions in there. I will thank you for joining again. I will look forward to seeing you again. We do host quite a few of these events, so feel free to join. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye.